Let's go.
Let's do it.
What do you tell me? Give me the thumbs up, Austin, when you think we're live.
I'm just going to double check some things.
Okay. How nervous are you right now? We've never done a live.
Me?
Yeah.
Not us, you.
I haven't lived on YouTube before, but I've done Twitch.
Okay.
So if there's anything, it's like we're going to just find out. Oh, we are live, yes.
Yeah, sweet.
Well, this will be good.
Hey, Austin, if any
Live.
questions come up.
Yeah, I can run polls. I can do.
Okay.
Let me check my access real quick.
Maybe text them to us or something.
This is going to be the unpolished version.
Yeah.
Let's make it unpolished, man. That's what people need.
That's the beauty of
I love it.
live.
I love it.
Hey, if you guys are joining us on our YouTube channel, we are sitting down with Mark Fitzpatrick, future governor of Idaho,
Amen.
quite potentially. We did a podcast with him a few weeks back. He's running. Election is coming up in, 9 days?
Yeah.
Yes.
10 days, something like that. So get out and vote. And we wanted to sit down with him. He's back up here in North Idaho. He's going to be at the Bunker Bar later today from 11 to 3. That's in Post Falls, Idaho. Answering questions up there. But we wanted to have him on real quick this morning just to do some follow-up. And if you guys have questions while you're out there, shoot them to us. Our videographer, Austin, will send them over and we'll ask them directly to the man himself. But Dave and I have a lot of questions too because people have been pinging us, as you would expect.
And you did say this is your first live one you've ever done.
Yes.
Okay, so I love that.
Yes.
Just so everybody knows that. I love live. I love being in front of real people in a real place, asking real questions, and that's a sign of transparency, right?
Right.
And that's what we need. We need the people who are representing us should love transparency, and then just basically hand that truth to the people, so the people can have that power. But I
And
love
why?
it.
And
Thank
why?
you.
Why wouldn't anyone love transparency? Because I mean, in elected office, you work for the people. I think a lot of folks in office forget that. Have you heard back from Governor Little about you wanted to debate him? That was very public. He has not, as far as I know, accepted.
No, he is not even acknowledged it. I dropped it off, to his secretary. No acknowledgement there. We'll see if he acknowledges his buffoonery that he did this week.
Well, I definitely want to talk about that. So, I mean, to not engage in a debate tells me you're scared or hiding something, to be honest. And it's not like you're, some whack job. You are a legitimate candidate. You are backed by a ton of conservative parties in the state. So you have a very legitimate run at this. He should accept a debate with you, in my opinion. The people want him to. I want my governor to be asked questions and have a conversation with somebody. I want that.
I think it's very very traditional. I just have like a accent there, Betty. It's very traditional in the U.S. that people focus. They don't focus on the primaries as much, right?
Right.
They really don't. Really, it comes down to when you look from a national scale, most people don't really care almost who gets in there, but in November, they're going to vote for their party. Idaho is very different. We've talked about this. The primaries are super important here because this is a very conservative state, like it or not. And because of that, this really is the election, right? This reminds me of the 49ers, and he doesn't watch football. The 49ers in Dallas back in the day, like when they competed, that was really the Super Bowl. Whoever won that was going to win the Super Bowl. Nobody cared.
Right.
So this is actually really, really important. And that's why I think the debates should happen now, because come November, there's not going to be much of a debate to happen. Even if it does, I don't think it's going to sway a lot of voters. I think there's very much people that have chosen sides already. And there's a value system that exists in Idaho to where it is going to push conservative. So having you debate him would be great. But I think for a lot of people that are listening real quick, because Mark, a lot of people may not have watched our podcast before or know your background. Can you give us a quick summary of your background professionally?
I'll give the quick one. Yeah, so I always tell people, first and foremost, I'm Christian. This is the values that I grew up on. And the way I stand when I look at life. I'm married. My wife, we've been married 23 years. We have 6 children, and we homeschool them. I was a police officer for 15 years, 12 full-time, 3 as a reserve. During that time as a police officer, I had businesses that I was running, escrow company, real estate brokerage, and marketing company. And then it just got to the point where it was just all too much. So I left that police work, which I loved doing. I actually loved that job. But I went in to just focus on my businesses. I've had a lot of businesses over the years. Some have done very well, and I've sold them. Others have crashed and burned, and I've lost a lot and learned a lot. And then today, We have a small real estate brokerage, and then we have a event center that mainly does weddings. And I have Old State Saloon, which is the famous one.
Down in Eagle, right?
Right, in Eagle.
Right.
And so the short summary for that is a few years back, for people who don't know, we did, instead of celebrating Pride Month during June of 2024 and the LGBTQ extremism and everything, we decided at Old State Saloon for the month to celebrate Heterosexual Awesomeness Month. And that really kind of went around the world and gathered a whole bunch of hate from people who were upset at me for celebrating heterosexuality. And then obviously a lot of support from people too who said, this is great, we support you, enough is enough. By the way, I always try to mention some of those people supporting were LGBT people who have also had enough with the extreme part of LGBTQ.
Right.
And so that's where we're at today. So the experience has been in, police work, business ownership, hiring, employing hundreds of people over the years, firing many, and everything that's come with it. Since Old State Saloon, there's been a lot of culture warrior type of political stances in public that I've taken, and gaining a big following or a bigger following over the years. And also a bigger enemy list over the years of people who really don't like what I'm doing, because I just kind of keep standing up for what's right and true, and whether it's political or social war type stuff.
Okay. That's good.
How is the campaign going so far? What's the check-in right now? Where are you at with groups supporting you? I know there's a poll recently, a straw poll.
Yeah, and then Benewah County also. So we're at 10. We're at 10 Republican Central Committee. I'll just call them victories because they call them different things. Some of them are called endorsements. Some are called, preferred candidate. And then others do a straw poll. So Ada County recently did a straw poll with the committeemen voting. And so it was 47 voting for me and 17 voting for Brad Little. And so that was great. So we have the three largest counties. We have Kootenai County. We have Ada County, and then Canyon County. They voted, one of their legislative districts was able to get a vote together, and they voted for me. So not the full county for Canyon County, but those are the three biggest. And with that comes a ton of support, grassroots support, and said they have the precinct committeemen going out and telling people. We've got rack cards going out just for Kootenai County, 40,000 rack cards, and so that's where all the ground support comes in. And people are excited wherever I'm going. I'm meeting thousands of people. This is my 90th event today. And then we have, two more events today. And we're at 11,000. We just broke 11,000 miles on the car and our truck. And
that's awesome.
I need new tires for sure. But it's been a blast. Learned a lot by talking with everybody about the way they're thinking about things, and county needs versus state. And the state seems to be having so much money and just wasting it, and the county needs money, everywhere. So there's just so much that we've been learning. But yeah, so I wanted to say this: 148,000 votes is what Brad Little had last time in the primary to win. Okay, 148,000. We have 2.1 million people in the state. We have 1.1 or 2.
That's crazy.
I know, it's crazy.
Right?
It is crazy.
Less than 10%.
And if you think about this, I'm going around talking to thousands of people, and everybody is saying there's no way I'm voting for Brad Little.
Yeah.
So a lot of people.
What do you think that is?
Well, because 4 more years of the same, and they're seeing signs of socialism happening in our cities.
Right.
They're seeing signs of a lot more illegals. The illegal conversations come up a lot more. A lot more refugees have come in. We have a system now where we take in taxes and we are giving it to not even Americans,
right?
Illegals, and so I'm kind of calling that an invasion orchestrated by foreign and domestic enemies.
So, good.
Out of the thousands of people you're talking to, is there a resounding message that you're hearing from the people of Idaho, or a concern, or something?
Everybody wants truth.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody's really clear now. We live in a world full of deception, and I think you look back 10 years ago at your life, and what were you aware of back then compared to what you're aware of now? That's going on with the government and everything. and just the deep deception that's happening everywhere. And so people are much more aware right now. We can be thankful for that, for sure. But it's kind of like, wow, what are we going to do about what we're aware of? And people are just so fed up. A lot of people have gone, to the point where they feel a bit hopeless, like the black belt type thing. Like they just feel like it's not recoverable. It's all going to crash and burn, and they're kind of waiting for that to happen,
Sure.
or almost just want it to happen. I just try to encourage those people, to keep going and keep getting up and fighting. And as much as they feel like it doesn't, their vote does matter. In Idaho, your vote matters because your vote, you're actually representing a whole lot more people because they're not voting.
Yeah.
So percentage-wise, it matters.
So, I want to come back to that illegal immigration conversation, but to kind of start it off too. So we all know that there's some handcuffs, right? It's not a dictatorship. You end up being governor, and there's a lot of red tape to get through to get anything done, right? There's certain powers that you have and don't. What's different? What looks different if you're sitting in that seat versus Brad Little a year from now? What are the changes that you think can be made, and the things that you're going to try to do that people are going to recognize?
So it's that truth, the truth that everybody wants. I'm going to give them, and there's a lot of ways that I want to do that. It's essentially like we have right now is a media that helps the executive branch and judicial branch just fly under the radar is what they're doing, because they actually like what we have in place. Even though they're leftist, and that's a big concern. So what I want to do is essentially rally the people. I've got plans on how to do that. I mean, there's going to be massive shrinking of different government agencies and things. However, the one thing that I'm going to increase would be the press team of the governor's office. We're going to be investigating, looking at things, getting information, and pushing it out, and skipping mainstream media, getting a list or team aggregated of independent journalists that we're spreading information through, going to them first for stories, letting them have the story rather than mainstream media. We're going to create, bigger email lists of people following. We're going to people far more involved. We're going to have events where I'm standing in front of people in a real room, in a real place, and they can ask unscripted questions of the governor. We'll have at those events some key people that need to answer to the people as well directly about whatever the hot topic is at that
Sure.
time. So all these things I want to put in place, which are just absurdly different than the current situation. The current situation is mum's the word. I mean, just with the news that went out this week, we see, with what Brad said, which we can get to in a minute, but it's just like there's no comment on it. Nobody's commenting. The media doesn't comment on it because they're,
Right.
covering for him. He doesn't comment on it, even though it's a total ridiculous thing that he said. So it's the opposite as far as information. Information warfare is the thing that we're all realizing, hey, we were just under information warfare for decades and totally deceived by, the people that control the information.
Right.
And now we're trying to figure out, okay, how do we fight against this information warfare?
Do you think there's going to be pushback from legislators in terms of giving out certain information that maybe mum is the word that people haven't known about? Because I think that there is a little bit of, well, we don't need to inform everybody on this because they're not smart enough to understand why we're making this decision. I think that is typically, I think there's a lot of people that are in government that think I was put here for a reason. People trust me to do this, and I don't need to explain it all because they're just not going to understand all the complexities to these decisions.
I strongly reject that theory. The people deserve to have the truth. They deserve to know where their money's going and how it's being spent. And with the technology that we have today, we're able to give them great detail on that. And not only that, but go back in time and tell them the way their money was spent and
Do you
find out.
think that's going to create some turmoil for some people that have spent money incorrectly?
When I get sworn in, there's gonna be a lot of turmoil created. It's true, but it's good turmoil that's needed, because when you rebuild something that is powerful and right and true and good, we have to build it on top of the mess that's created from going in and basically blowing up the current corrupt system that's going on.
So there's going to be a decrease in government oversight if you were to step in that.
A decrease?
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean?
Well, you said one of the things you want to do is decrease spending in some of these government areas and everything else. Does that mean a decrease in a little bit of oversight?
Not necessarily. It means a lot less wasted time,
Okay.
and a lot less fraudulent time. I think we need more oversight of the government, not more oversight of the government of the people.
Got it.
So less regulation and overreach. of the people, licenses. I mean, I've been talking with people lately about marriage licenses and why the government needs to be involved in marriages and things like that. So, but yeah, we're going to have a lot of people that end up leaving agencies and leaving the government because they're not going to like the transparency that's coming.
Oh, I'm certain. And they won't leave quietly either. It's going to be, I don't support this guy and I'm out of here and I don't want to be part of this. And that's fine.
What do you tell the people? I've had some people asking me questions that say you don't have a background in politics. How are you going to navigate this system? Are you going to be able to do it effectively?
So I surround myself with people who are geniuses that have great backgrounds in all these areas. They'll be specialists in the different categories. I mean, this is like a good CEO isn't going to necessarily know how to, do all the different jobs. Certainly doesn't know how to do all the different jobs, but finds and leads the right people with vision, cast that vision, and equip those people to do an amazing job that they are, blessed and talented and have worked their whole life to have those talents. So I want to be that governor that drives them, provides what they need to do a great job for the people ultimately. I'm definitely going to be a lot of things that I don't personally know, but I'll either learn or get the right people in that will.
Right. Now you started to talk about something that Brad Little said. Can we talk about that?
Let's do it.
All right. Tee it off. What exactly was said by Brad?
So it appears like at one of his own campaign events, somebody was there, an independent person of some sort, and captured him on film or tape, whatever you want to say there, and asked him questions about me. And Brad Little, not knowing he was being filmed, said that all of my followers are from California and came here within the last 3 years, and that many of us, or some of us, are just flat out racist and hate Mexicans, and it's a bigger group than you would think. Is what he said. That's the basic summary. That's not quoting him. That's the basic summary of what he said.
Wow.
Yes, wow. And then there's more recording of, and he was at an event, and he's with these PAC people at this event, which there's also some kind of like questions going on about what's going on there and who's paying for things, etc. He's also has this event, and we're not sure who's paying for it. And then there's all these people that he's supporting campaigning that are at this event. So it's very interesting to see that. We have PAC people talking about illegals and how we need to keep being able to hire illegals so that we have these workers. And so you start to understand that he's now, Brad Little is now calling us racist and we hate Mexicans because we support the rule of law as far as immigration and dealing with the problem of how many illegals we have in Idaho, et cetera.
Well, you can see very clearly, I'm not saying Idaho doesn't have an illegal immigration problem. Some people immediately take that and they go, you're saying it doesn't. No, I think there's still that issue, but you can clearly see the other states that really employ that even more, right? And really support illegal immigration, illegal voting, illegal driver's license, social security numbers, everything else, right? And provide that. You can identify those states pretty clearly, and you can see how it's working. It's not working great. So it's very easy, and I think it's always subtle. I don't think it's major changes. I think it's little switches, like you said, where you end up in that place. And if somebody's not willing to identify it now because of somebody's emotional status and, well, you're racist, well, bring me the proof that hear somebody say it. I don't think there's any place for that in Idaho. We've done podcasts on this before, and I hate it when somebody reaches out to us and says, well, I'm concerned about moving to North Idaho because that's where, white supremacists go. And I'm like, who are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, show me where they are.
I was in law enforcement up here, and I'll tell you what. It absolutely baffled me when I would make a stop and somebody would call me racist. And I would have a conversation with them and say, I don't understand how, you came to this conclusion on this.
Yeah.
Because
you're bald and white.
You are right.
Obviously.
And so it's crazy to me because nobody up here supports it. I haven't heard anybody openly come out and say, you know what, I'm racist. I don't want people of a different race, creed, color out here. I haven't heard that. And I haven't heard that from you either. So how does that come out that you would be racist? Or that we would be racist because we would support you.
So it's a liberal tactic, right? And I think it's Brad Little's really showing his liberalism here, which, I can talk a lot about his liberalism through his entire career and point out things that are very clear. But This is a liberal tactic when you just start name calling people instead of actually dealing with the truth of the matter and talking about what people understand and view and hold as something that's a very concerning issue to them
Sure.
and the future. Instead of sitting down and having that conversation, which is what I will do, Brad Little doesn't have that conversation. He refuses to have that conversation and instead starts name calling. This is a liberal move.
It's difficult because it's an emotional tactic versus focusing on the issues at hand. And I think when you start bringing up things like racism, sexuality, certain things like that, it triggers people, and that becomes the focus of the conversation. Abortion, anything else like that becomes a focus because it's an emotional thing. If you start talking about you know, how you're going to run the government financially, or other things that actually matter, certain laws, bills, whatever else it is, people have a tendency to wash that stuff off because they don't understand it.
Yep.
But it's very easy to say, well, I understand that this person doesn't like that person because of the color of their skin. And it becomes emotional and becomes a voting issue.
Yeah, and it's wrong. You know, when I was a police officer and I pulled people over and they would say, "Oh, you just pulled me over because I'm black," and I said, "You're just saying that because I'm white." You know,
Touche.
and it's like, and then another example. This one time, it was not too long ago. I was sitting in front of Old State Saloon with my adopted son, and we're sitting there, and he's Native American and Mexican, and we're sitting there talking. This lady walks up. She doesn't know he's my son. And she calls him over and gives him a high five and then whispers something in his ear. And he comes back and he told me that she told him to stay away from me because I'm racist. That she didn't know that I'm his dad.
Wow.
And so I kind of I got in her face a little bit and then, you know, explained it. And, you know, she's a local and she's never really shown her face again since then. I think she felt pretty embarrassed. But
Yeah. I will tell you that, Mark, if there was something, if you had pulled us aside and said, hey, I want to, you know, I'm racist, or I think this needs to be a white state or anything else, you, Brad Little, anybody else, I don't even think we would have you on our podcast, if I'm being honest. I don't think I would come anywhere near supporting that.
Unless you're doing it to grill me and show everybody, you know, that type of thing, which you should at that point. Absolutely.
Yeah, but I mean, that's not something that I think anybody would support. And honestly, I think if you had made those statements to us, I don't think we would be having this type of conversation.
Right. Right.
What's your stance on marijuana? I saw we did a video about marijuana recently and coming to Idaho. Legislators trying to push through a law. I couldn't find the number right now, but that bans ever being able to put marijuana on the ballot ever again, which
it would ultimately leave the legalization of drugs to the legislation.
Takes it away from the people.
And not a ballot measure.
Yeah, I'm kind of against the idea of that in general. So, and I hadn't heard this before, and so just being straightforward with you, I haven't thought through what you're asking me.
Okay.
So, but my general response to it after first hearing is I don't like that general tactic or strategy, no matter what the topic is. So
I think if you take things off the ballot, you take away the power of the people to make decisions for their state.
Right.
I get it. The legislation is there for a reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely get it. But for them to be able to propose things and pass them without it going to the people, I feel like that starts to become government overreach. And all of a sudden now people, their voices start to get lessened quite a bit.
You have initiatives, and they're kind of a double-edged sword. And it's like people don't like initiatives right now because, you know, millions of dollars have come behind it, dark money, out-of-state money, to push an initiative like we've got coming up on in November, maybe a couple of them, it looks like. And then you have to remember the other side. Well, what if we have a rhino legislature and Senate, and they're not properly creating things that the people want, you know? And so this is a way to basically, you know, skip that process and be able to do it. So it's like a big negative sometimes than others. My solution for the whole out-of-state money thing coming, and let's just say, you know, I'm pro-life for sure. So this whole, you know, one that's about abortion that's coming up, you know, a lot of money coming in to support that, and people don't like that. So they'll say maybe we shouldn't have initiatives, or we should make them really hard, or whatever. And you know, I think that we should be so strong as people involved with the government that we would come in and obliterate initiatives like that have dark money behind them, to the point that people are like, well, let's not spend our money in Idaho anymore trying to corrupt it with these, you know, crazy laws that we're bringing in. By the way, calling them things like patriot this and whatever they lie. They're just
sneaky.
totally lying. They're
Well, it
sneaky
is. You're
about the
bypassing
names.
the people as well, which is what matters, and that's who it affects. And I think that large, big decisions like that should be left to the people. I really do. I don't think that should be something that you should be able to initiate. I don't think that's something that the legislature should be able to push through. I get that they're delegates, but there's also some things that are so critical to the way of life that to allow that to skip the public would be detrimental.
Yeah, and there's so much that I cannot do or would not be able to do as governor, but when the tactic of working with the people allows the governor in a very Trump-like style to put pressure on situations, right? And so if the people's attention, if I'm able to capture the people's attention by giving them all the truth and giving them this information, everything, and they trust that, then we're going to get them more involved and put pressure on these situations, which will be very helpful.
Yeah. Okay.
Did we already jump into the comments Governor Little made about the racist thing? Sorry, I was dealing with comments on that. Yeah, we already did. Okay.
We had a whole
Okay.
section.
Okay, sorry.
We do have
I'm half paying attention.
I did have somebody that sent me a question too. You mentioned fraud. Somebody sent me a question on Instagram asking how would you deal with the Medicare fraud that's going on and those types of things. Now, I'm unfamiliar with, I'm uneducated on what's actually going on. Is this something you're familiar with, and how would that be dealt with?
I'm lightly familiar with it. Anytime you have government, anything that's big in money, there's fraud going to be around there, typically, is what we're learning, unfortunately. And, whether it's that or whether we're talking about, health and welfare, or we're talking about the prison system, or any one of the other almost 200 agencies that Idaho has, that the governor has a lot of say on what's going on. My intention from day one is to start getting the truth from people. So, we're going to advise everybody and remind them the common sense thing that when you work for the government, you have to operate in truth. You can't be deceiving people and lying, etc. So they will sign something acknowledging that, all the employees of all these agencies. And then we'll start asking questions of them, where they all will respond to, and it will be what's your job and what do you do that brings value for the Idaho people? Have you noticed anything that's inefficient in your branch or agency where you work? Have you seen any fraud happening? Have you partaken in any of these types of things? A reminder, you need to let us know now. Otherwise, if we find out later that you're lying, your job will be terminated, basically. So when you send that type of questionnaire out to everybody and you get thousands and thousands because the responses are mandatory, and we analyze it with all of the AI and everything else, we're going to end up finding that there's a lot of concerns and outright fraud being reported. I have people coming to me as I'm traveling around and telling me about different streams of fraud they're aware of inside these different agencies. Because I've been speaking about fraud, they come to me when I visit their area and tell me about what they know. And these are new areas that I haven't heard of before in different agencies. And so it just seems to me over time, as I'm keep proceeding down this path, that I'm just aware more and more of that, that it's just everywhere.
Got it.
I had two questions pop through. This is from Nikita246. Hi, Mark. Do you have any plans to start removing all of the flock cameras that are increasingly popping up?
So 1 week to the day after I swear in, we're going to have Shoot the Flocks Down Day.
All right, be careful on how you say that. You might want to take cover.
I'm just kidding. I don't like them, and I would like to eliminate them. I don't like the surveillance state and all that type of stuff. And I don't necessarily know the exact path towards doing that, but rallying the people and getting the people upset enough to the point that we would figure out lawfully how to get that done would be, yes, I'm for that.
It's a nuanced conversation because I recognize, we're all former cops here, we recognize the power in the ability of those things to solve crimes quickly. If my child was abducted and Flock picked it up right away, that would be amazing. The flip side is the surveillance state. And where does that end, right?
Well, we know it doesn't end because of
exactly.
Patriot
it opens
Act.
the door. Yes.
And we're
So I don't know, what level of freedom is worth giving up? Maybe none.
right.
I don't know. That's a tricky one. She has one more question. How would you address data centers that's a big topic right now?
So I'm a big no on data centers, however, there's problems that I just want everyone to be clear. It's a no. Like, I'm a big no. I'm against them. However, there could be a point at some point where the problems are solved. Okay, we don't have to necessarily use water for cooling. There could be other solutions. I'm told there already are other solutions. They're just more expensive. And the noise, maybe there's some solution for the noise and the, what's spreading out of them as far as like sound vibrations and things that people are reporting that are affecting animals and things like that. And then maybe there's a solution for the power. I mean, there's the next generation of nuclear power, which I find very interesting. And it could bring big centers like that, or even areas around the state could be off, not connected to the normal grid that we are used to, right? It's connected to an alternative power source, nuclear energy, the next generation. So is it possible that there could be some point in time that we look at a plan transparently, give everybody the details, let everybody talk about it, and put together a financial plan where this actually is a clear benefit to the people of Idaho, not only from the beginning with jobs being hired for building such a thing, but also looking at the longevity of the situation and saying it's a benefit now and later because all these problems have been addressed. And maybe we have an example in another state that's already done it and they've addressed these problems. I'm just saying, if that happens, then and only then would I say, let's consider doing this.
So right now it's just a hard no with the cooling systems they have and everything else that's going on with them.
Correct.
Okay.
Elon's going to put all that shit on the moon anyway, so it's kind of a moot point.
He's flying a Falcon 9 rocket into the moon. Is anybody aware of this?
Yeah, you told me about it yesterday.
Like 5,400 miles an hour. He's flying a pile of junk into the moon. They just let that guy do anything. It's crazy. I'm excited.
On the energy point, is Idaho doing pretty good on? I mean, we have a lot of hydro energy. I don't know other ways that we produce energy. I'm not schooled up on it.
Yeah, I have a bit of a concern that you don't hear much happening. Certainly not from the governor, other than traditional energy. And there's a lot of progress being made in the nuclear world. I mean, we have the lab out east, which is nuclear, but what are we doing as far as the future goes, knowing that there's going to be a lot more power needed? I don't know if we want to have this conversation or if we did before, but AI robots and things and all that power that's connected or required for all that is interesting to think about. And so I don't feel like, from what I'm aware of, Idaho is doing enough to say, let's get out ahead of this and solve this problem. That's certainly one of the things that I would be doing in office.
I had another question pop up from Jonathan Loera. Are you concerned that you could split the party? I'm thinking he's talking about the votes, the conservative votes.
Well, that's the point of the primary, is that we're choosing who is going to represent the party, right? So they may not know this, but after the primary on May 19th, it's only one Republican that moves forward from that point, and the only one Republican will be on the November ballot, and that's the whole point, is to not split the party there. So we'll wind up with a Democrat, Republican, and there is an independent, a retired judge that will be on that November ballot. So.
Okay. Couple of questions from me. Have you learned anything on the campaign trail that was new to you? You've spent a lot of time in North Idaho. North Idaho is vastly different than Southern Idaho. Anything popped up that sticks in your mind?
Well, I'm learning every day. I don't know that there's something that's popping up in my mind right now that's bigger than anything else. I mean, I've talked with people in North Idaho that are very concerned about trafficking along certain routes and highways and things like that. I'm talking about human trafficking. I've talked to other people who are very concerned in their area about how they're going to afford to have ambulance services in their county. And we're talking, they need a budget of like $1 million. Meanwhile, hundreds of millions of dollars in Boise are being wasted in fraud and everything, going out to illegals and refugees. And so, there's things everywhere to learn. And I've been really enjoying talking to the different people about the different local concerns too.
I just had another question pop up, and we talked about this a little bit at the beginning, so she may have jumped in after. Darla, she says, as a Hispanic family that relocated here from California, how do we get the illegal aliens out of our state?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of talk about 287G and deportations and ICE and everything, and that's not the way to do it. We need to support all that, and I do support all that. In fact, I offered free beer for a month to anybody. To anybody who helped ICE, but I am supporting that. However, the key to solving this problem is to stop the freebies and stop the jobs. So when we pass a bill like should have been passed, bill number 700 that Guthrie buried in his drawer, and the will of the people did not move forward in that instance, and it did not become law. But that bill would have made it illegal for employers to employ illegals on a state level. So now, January of 27, February, whatever, in that session, we'll pass a similar bill. I'll be governor then, and I will create a team or division on Idaho State Police that specifically addresses this issue and investigates employers who are employing illegals. I will tell them we are eager to find that crime taking place, and that we will prosecute. We'll prosecute 2 or 3 employers that employ illegals, and then I promise you nobody's going to employ illegals anymore in Idaho. When that happens, the illegals will leave with their families, and they'll go, and this is what they have told me after they admitted being illegal, they will go to California or back home, and what he was talking about in that particular instance was Mexico. So when you do it that way, they're voluntarily leaving. Nobody's chasing anybody down. There's no fights happening. There's no shootings accidentally happening. There's no embarrassing
Right.
stories.
The opportunities are just gone.
There's no jail cells needed. We don't need to get the sheriffs to all cooperate, and they do have some understandable concerns about cooperating financially. And so there's just all those obstacles go away. They go to California, and it becomes California's problem.
Good. Got some good questions rolling in now. Do you have any words to non-Republicans? How do you, right, you don't want to get into office and then push away, because there are a percentage of people here that are not Republican. How do you unite that? How do you speak to them as well?
Well, I guess I would say for non-Republicans that I don't address people and speak to people the same way that the Old State Saloon brand does online in less than 200 characters or whatever. You know, what I'm saying is, like, everybody's assuming that I am going to be exactly like this Old State Saloon brand, which is pretty brash and pretty direct. But when you watch me and I talk to people at a Pride Fest or wherever I'm out and I'm talking with people, I go to these events, I go to the protests and stuff, and I engage in conversation with people, and I've recorded it and put it online. It's a loving, thoughtful conversation that we have sometimes. Other times I get chased out by people and they're screaming at me because they don't like my presence there. But when somebody's willing to talk, it's always a good, meaningful conversation. We learn about each other. And so anyways, as the governor, what I'm saying is, I have care and concern for everybody in the state. I love everybody in the state. I truly do. That's why I'm doing this. And I want what's best for everybody. I'll hear people out. I mean, as long as your statement doesn't start with F this and you're bigot that,
A genuine conversation.
If it starts with F
Right.
this and bigot that, I'll probably start recording you right away so I can show everybody. But anyways, I think people will be pleasantly surprised the way that I will have care and concern for them, even the people that disagree with.
Well, when you represent everybody in a state, regardless of party lines or anything else, when you represent everybody in the state, it's different than a personal business, right? You have to have that consideration and empathy for people regardless. You can still maintain your values, you can still maintain your qualities and everything about that, but you have to be willing, like you said, the transparency is huge. Everybody can play a tune to themselves, right? But when other people come in and they have concerns with how you're doing stuff, you have to be willing to listen and see what their concerns are, because truthfully, good debate is what helps you grow. It helps you see what the other side is so that you're not doing something that is in harm to somebody inadvertently.
Yeah, and here's the thing is I've said this numerous times. I'm going to stand in front of people who come into a room and ask me questions. As long as those questions aren't threatening, the Idaho State Police, I'm sure, will stay in their corners, and people will be able to get out the point they're trying to make to the governor, who will listen to it and answer them live on camera, and it will go around the state for people to see.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think people should have that.
Here's a good one. This is from James. I support Mark and plan on voting for him. I don't support the TQ plus ideology. What are Mark's views on homosexuality, and how can I be sure my rights as a gay man won't be compromised under his leadership?
I'll just flat out say your rights as a gay man will not be compromised under my leadership.
Well, that's pretty clear.
So they'll make that clear. I very much would fight for people's rights to choose to live their life they want to be. They're an adult. You can choose to do that. I will not celebrate it. I'm not going to say, good for you, this is something that is morally great and I'm going to get behind it. I don't believe that. I have my biblical beliefs, but just because I have my biblical beliefs, I'm certainly not going to force anything on anybody. That's not the way God works. He's never worked that way through history. He's given people the option to choose what they want to choose. And that's our That's why we call them God-given, inalienable rights that we have, that in this country, and we're clear about it. And I feel very strongly about that. First, Second Amendment, et cetera. Going on from there, it's just I will shockingly fight for the gay man's rights as the governor. I shockingly, because people probably are making assumptions about me that
I'm sure.
are not true.
Yeah. What about marriage licensing for gays?
So I don't personally think marriage definition would include anything other than a man and a woman. Our state constitution, not sure if you're aware of this, our state constitution says that marriage is between one man and one woman. That's already been decided in our state constitution. Supreme Court overrules that with their decision, so we operate under what the Supreme Court says. I kind of don't feel like the government needs to be involved in anybody's marriage, personally. I'm not going to be getting in office and, full speed ahead trying to get that eliminated. However, if the people decide that's something a direction they would like to go, where the government, you're licensing something typically to somebody when you have control of it, and then you give them a license to do something, right? So the government doesn't have control of marriage.
It's a good thing that you bring that up, because I've always had the stance. I've done quite a few weddings up here and everything else, and I always have the conversation with people, because people ask, well, hey, will you marry a gay couple? And I said, well, I won't. But let me explain this. Politics and rights, inalienable rights, are something completely different than my moral stance and my beliefs on marriage, right? When you use the word marriage, it gets separated. When I look at marriage, I say, okay, this is something that God gave, right? And here's my belief on it. So if you want to come up to me and say, well, I'm married because this is me and my partner, I will disagree with you based off of my morality. However, if you were to come to me and say, well, do you think we shouldn't have the same rights to be able to pay taxes together and do these things? I probably would say no. Yeah. And truthfully, I don't think the state does have the right to marry people. If they want to give out civil unions to me and my wife, to somebody else, go ahead. I don't care, because that's where the state starts to come in, is based off of the legality of who can you call when you're at the hospital, who do you pay taxes, who receives your death benefits, right? If the state wants to authorize that, I don't care. Where I have a problem with it is where you start to blend over into my faith, and I go, hold on, I disagree with this from a faith standpoint, not from a political standpoint.
Yeah, I think the state likes to license things, and then they're essentially have this authority over us at that point in time. So they're giving you some of your money back, or whatever, not taking as much as your money. In trade, they are exercising or have the ability to have some sort of control over you, and I just do not like that idea at all.
I agree with you.
So I would say, back on that, so people can call their relationship whatever they want to. You're going to ask me what my definition of marriage is. It's the marriage that's in our Constitution, our state Constitution. But he's, in that instance, he can call it that. I just disagree.
Yeah.
That's all. But I want him to have the right to do that.
Cool. Chemtrails.
What about them?
Several states have passed legislation to ban them flying over their states. Or is that in your?
Silly you! They're just contrails. That's the letter that comes from the governor's office to people. Numerous times I've had it sent to me. People have sent it to me. Clearly, that's not the case. We have even on schedules and calendars, Idaho Power, geoengineering scheduling, and then what's the difference between this geoengineering actions and then other chemtrails we're witnessing? What is truly contrails? And I think what we witness from our government is a lot of mystery and inconclusive, anything, or just not even talking about it at all, or gaslighting on the issue. And so instead, what I want to do is give everybody the truth. I have a feeling that when we investigate and start really asking questions and providing everybody with the truth, we will probably come to the conclusion that we don't want them to continue in our skies anymore. And I would be for supporting legislation that would stop that from happening like other states are doing.
So if you were able to definitively tell the people of Idaho, hey, chemtrails are a thing. Let's get rid of the conspiracy theory. These are a thing. Who would vote to keep those in the sky? I'm confused. When you look up, if I'm like, That's condensation. I'm fine with condensation. If you were able to tell me, yeah, as your governor, I can tell you this is a thing, this is geoengineering, and this is a chemical that's being dropped over your state. I don't know how many people would say, I want that.
Yeah.
We could put little chemical oxidizers in people's homes for themselves if they want to breathe it in.
Well,
I don't want it.
You have people that say they're going to say, okay, we're doing this so that we don't have global warming. We're cooling things down. We're putting
Stop it. Yeah.
But people believe it. Okay, and then we're doing this so that we have enough rain. Okay, so they've been doing more and more geoengineering, so we have rain and snow in the winter. Somehow we still have a drought, so I don't know.
I bet you Seattle loves the more rain too.
Yeah, I don't understand. If it works, why are we in a drought?
Now we've got boxes of ticks showing up. I don't know if that's happened in Idaho yet, but I have a solution for that. It's called guinea hens. They will eat up to 1,000 ticks a day.
Wow.
So we just...
I have chickens on my property. There are no ticks anywhere.
Yeah, turkey. I got tons of turkeys too. They'll wreck all that. On the chemtrails thought, it'll come back to me. Carry on. Sorry.
No, I think that's in that I think comes down to the transparency part that you're talking about, right? Like there's so much inconclusive information that people have nowadays because of the government, because for whatever reason, and truthfully, Mark, I don't know how it happens if you end up swearing in. If there's a call made to you and you're like, hey, there's certain things you're not going to do. I don't know what happens. I've never been in that spot, and I have seen people in politics change really quickly. Mm-hmm. And I always wonder why. You know what I mean? I mean, you imagine you're going to be one step away from President Trump. That's a pretty big deal to be one step away. You're going to receive a phone call from that guy.
Right.
And there's going to be a lot of information passed back and forth.
Right.
And so I always wonder why people change in those situations, but it would be good to know where your stance is now.
Yeah, I think that, you have everything from honeypots, blackmail, money, power, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Mm-hmm. People, they get addicted to that power. I have no problem doing one term and then going back to life, doing business and everything. I don't have any desire to be a king for 50 years.
Just turn down any invites to any islands.
Anywhere. Well, so that's the thing is,
Please.
Yeah, for sure. And I think what's going to be interesting is my first opportunity to just go immediately public with somebody who tries to do something like that to me. And then what happens from there after I do that, everyone's going to know if you try to do something to the Fitzpatrick administration, they're just going to go public with it right away, and then they won't do it anymore. I don't know. It's just it's very interesting thoughts because I don't know what happens either, obviously.
I think that you unfortunately get put into a position where you see sides of things that you almost don't want to, right? I think that's probably one of the most difficult things. And I don't understand geopolitics and all those, everything that happens that, what happens in Idaho affects what happens in South Carolina, what affects happens overseas. I don't understand all that stuff, but I'm certain that those are things that'll be put in front of you. Well, if you do this, here's how it's going to affect everybody else.
Right. And
that's going to be a tough decision for sure.
Yeah, we'll have to take it as they come.
Yeah.
Will you still drink beer?
Absolutely.
As governor? Okay, I just want to know. Yeah. I mean, I don't want you to change, right? Like if you drink beer now, you should still be able to drink beer when you're governor.
Yes.
So I have like an ad lib for you. I started to write this sentence and I wanted you to finish it. So no, it's not bad. How would you say Idaho will be a leader of blank?
Okay, so there's a lot of things that I would put in there. I want to be a leader of energy, and we already kind of have these deals and things where we're putting energy things together and pushing energy to other states. I don't like the idea of doing that until we are strong and extremely wealthy and rich. People talk about taxes, and I say, what about this tax and this tax? And I say, where it's like a Back to the Future reference. Where we're going, we won't need taxes. And I'm serious about that. And a lot of people will think that's far-fetched and you can't do that, et cetera, the same way they react to Trump when he says we're not going to have any income tax anymore. It's going to be the External Revenue Service. But the reality is that we have a tremendous amount of natural resources in Idaho. I really want to get into that and responsibly access those and use them for the max benefit of the people of Idaho. We're sitting on trillions of dollars of natural resources, and that means that we don't need to be paying taxes, like any of them. So the tax advantage or the tax, carrot that the government has when it says license your marriage with us, and then we'll have some control over you in the future. Well, there's no longer that carrot anymore, right? And so we don't have the pressure of wanting to be married and determined to be married by the state rather than what other institution that you would have that do, whether it be church or friends or whatever that witness it, et cetera. So I guess the way I would answer that is to say that I would like to lead the way. Energy pops up, and then lead the way in eliminating taxes.
I love the fact that you just brought that up, because that is actually a really cool thought. And I've never even looked at it that way, but to be able to take marriage away from the state, because people have a tendency to do that through the state, right? Because there's a tax advantage, like you said.
Right.
There is a carrot. I think that is such a cool way to look at it, to say, hey, you go do your thing with your marriage, right? But it's not something that you're going to benefit, with the state, in terms of some people will get it and some people won't.
Right.
That's actually really cool.
I had a question about curriculum. Do you have a plan to get rid of the air quotes vetted curriculum for the state of Idaho that includes social emotional learning? I guess that she says that's the children's version of DEI. Where do you stand on education?
So anything that sounds very leftist to me, and I'm pretty strong against those things. Education, we need to be teaching our children basics. I like the idea of most education being brought more towards the private sector and decision making happening at the family level. And we need to teach the kids the basics, and then from there, we need to teach and build them up the way that they are talented and blessed naturally. And if we are able to spend our time with kids who are excellent musicians, instead of bogging them down with pre-calculus, that they would be able to go and spend their time learning how to be excellent musicians, I think that would be a better education. My family, we've been, with one teacher, when one of my daughters was third or second grade, and said she was scoring really low on the standardized test, and she's very concerned. And my wife said to the teacher, well, is she interacting with the kids okay? And is she a good student in class? Oh, yeah, she's a great student interacting. She's just scoring really low in these areas. And then my wife's like, well, then just stop testing her.
Yeah.
We just, it's what's important in life. Is it these standardized tests, or are we providing kids with what they need to really, really, do amazing things because of the way that they're talented?
Truthfully, testing is a government control thing, right? You're not testing the child, you're testing the government system. And with that, you get carrots. Like you said, you get taxes, you get income, you get all these things if you match certain testing. And I don't know what country it is. I don't know if it's Japan or wherever else, but they talk about that they, in a 8-hour school day in the US, there's like 4 hours dedicated to testing. And over there, it's like no hours dedicated to testing. It's all learning.
Right.
And so I agree with you, because I think we put such a pressure, and it also creates, when you talk about building somebody's emotional status and everything else, it's one thing to take them in and say, we're going to teach you something today. Here's a bunch of education. Let's stick together. Let's do this, as opposed to, hey, now we're going to stress you out with a test. And by the way, if you didn't do good, you're stupid.
Mm-hmm.
You're never going to be that person because you tested well.
Right.
Or this person tested well, you didn't. When you think about that, you look at all the other things that are damning our kids right now. You look at social media and the comparisons and all the stuff that's going through their heads nowadays. I can tell you that if you play soccer and your team doesn't win a game, you suck at soccer. You probably are not going to have a career in soccer. I get it. And that's fine with me, for me to look at somebody like that. But when you do it with education, when you take somebody that's supposed to be developing, that's supposed to be grabbing onto critical information that's going to help them the rest of their lives, and then at a young age, you start telling them, you know what, you suck at math. So any job in the future with math, you suck at.
Right.
I think that's difficult, and we focus so much on that. My son just got done with the ACTs, and he comes home and he's like, Dad, I'm retarded. And I'm like, well, welcome to the group. I go, my SATs were terrible, and I seem to be able to have made it through a lot of the things that those people that got really high SAT scores didn't.
Right.
And so I would love to see as much testing go away, because I think the education needs to be actually that.
You
education.
can't force people into this mold. Like, same thing. My daughter's terrible at math, and I'm like, but she's really good at English and creative writing. I'm like, go that route. You should not be forced into. She's never going to do anything with math. Teach the basic skills for life, right? How to balance a checkbook, how to deal Wait, do people balance checkbooks anymore?
I don't know.
Whatever they do. Like teach that stuff. That's important.
But
Yes.
imagine your daughter. Imagine Hadley going to school and not coming home and being like, oh, I suck at math because she got a bad grade in a test. What if when she went to school and she goes, I don't understand this. Instead of saying, well, you got a test on it, so let's do this. Said, okay, well, let's sit down and let's go over this a little more.
Sure. And you know
spend
what?
the
If we-
time doing that.
If we decide that your brain just isn't wired that way,
Yeah,
let's
but
focus on English.
You could
I'm good
spend
with
so
that.
much more time on actual education.
So Austin
Okay.
ran a poll for us while we were talking. So out of 13 votes, who are you voting for this November, Mark Fitzpatrick or Brad Little? We got 13 votes in. 85% for you, sir. 15% are voting for Brad out of our listeners. Interesting.
That seems very scientific. Let's just call it. Let's call it now.
Yeah, I think
And,
we're good.
yeah, we're good.
We'll go ahead and forward these up to the governor's office and let Brad know that he lost. Yeah, good stuff. That's cool. So there was a question on here about maybe it was in my mind. Masks and pandemics, and I know hantavirus is like scaring people well, the media is scaring people about hantavirus. Governor's office, where do you stand on that?
Yeah, truth. So I don't think that we need to create $1 trillion marketing plan to convince people there's a virus if there's an actual virus happening. And so what we witnessed was an agenda, and it was very obvious. I listened to the doctors who were losing their careers and risking their entire livelihood and everything over what they were saying, compared to the doctors that were getting massive bonuses to say what they were saying, partnered with some celebrity who's giving away French fries. It was absurd when we look back on it, what happened. And our governor bought in, hook, line, sinker, and took all the money and created more programs, and he declared an emergency, and he extended that emergency, so he had emergency powers for over 900 days. He closed down businesses and closed down everything in masks, and he encouraged people to get masks, and he wanted compliance, is what he said. He wants compliance for masks and vaccines. And we had to listen to vaccine commercials in our grocery stores all the way through for years. For me, I was out there protesting with my family at different events against all that stuff. I showed up and did that in person. I had no idea that, I would be telling people about that today, but that was just so people know, that was my actual response. I actually was pretty vocal about it all online. And some people, like even at church, they were saying, maybe you should, back off on like how much you're telling people not to get vaccinated and not to do that. To me, it was like really important. I didn't want people to get hurt. And it seemed very suspicious the way everything was going down. And so I had a very much a distrust of the whole thing, and I wanted everybody to know and research it.
You brought up government programs and, state programs and everything else. What I have found about programs is that they target very specific individuals. It's a lot of money from everybody in the state, and it benefits very, very few. And I think honestly, I think that's something, and I don't know if you have a plan to overhaul those or look into programs that the government provides, because when you talk about waste and everything else, there is definitely a tipped scale, okay, heavily weighted towards a very small amount of individuals that are paid for by the government. And it's not that they can't provide value. I think there's definitely programs out there that should stay, and I think there's ones that are fantastic and they help people in the right way. And it should be everybody's ability to assist in that. But what's your thoughts on programs? Are you seeing a lot of these programs that are, like you said, when you talk about fraud and waste, things that need to go away?
Yeah, so on the one hand, you take a situation like, let's just say special needs. I don't want any money going out from people taking advantage of special needs programs that the government's paying for, because those are our tax dollars. But people say, are you going to fully fund special needs? Well, my desire would be to super fund special needs programs. I think we can get in a position where Idaho is like the example of the nation of, wow, they really take care of people who are in need. Though, the least of these, and like those are the words that like the Bible would say, is like we would take care of those people. However, when you do that, you have people leeching on that also want the freebies too. So we have to be good at discerning between those two things. And the government typically is not good at that, because it's usually like, do they have this, this, and this? Then you shall give this, right? So private sector has a lot more control over the way that they're able to judge those things. And so I think the push for me would be more to try to figure out a way to have the private sector do those things. You know, whether it's we're collecting less taxes until we get to the point where we're getting all that money in from the natural resources, et cetera. We're collecting less taxes. People now have more money to choose in the private sector how to handle needs. We can invite and encourage churches to be more involved in these things and not rely on the government to do it. Or the government could even provide financial assistance to the private sector to do those things rather than being so involved.
Yeah.
But you know, you get in the private sector too, and there's money coming in, and people are lining pockets as well. So it's a matter of like shifting everybody's thinking so that people get in a mode of, no, that's not right, and that needs to be exposed. That corruption needs to be exposed because that's not right. Instead of everybody just saying it's too big of a thing, you know, to try to even handle. But if the people get into that point where they're willing to step forward and say something about fraud or whatever they see, that would be the best case scenario of how we can get it out of everything in our government.
Yeah.
So this all sounds incredibly amazing. We're going to build this into the best state ever to exist. How are we going to deal with the thousands and thousands of people that are going to want to come here? They already want to come here.
Yeah.
And
Growth
we're just
is
getting
huge.
started, right?
Yeah, and I think a lot of them are going to be those type of constitutional, conservative type of people because our neighboring states are obviously going a very different direction. And so they will want to come here. First and foremost, we'll have some relief on the housing when illegals leave, and that I think will be pretty quick. Secondly, you know, my idea about growth, and you can't avoid growth altogether when people want to come here, because it's just going to be so awesome. But expanding out rather than up, so horizontal growth rather than vertical. Vertical growth ends up putting us in a situation where a lot of people can be controlled by a few people. So the more spaced out people are, the less easy it is to control all of them by one or two people or the government. So I typically like the horizontal growth. We have to plan. We have to plan ahead of time. We can't be reactive. So we need to fund and finance groups of people who are looking and planning and have experience planning this type of thing for the future, as far as zoning and land use, et cetera, and do it in a way where we're not going to be egregiously overcrowded with things. And it just has to happen before we start panic and say, you know, we just need to green light every project because everybody, you know, we need more housing and everything, which in some places has kind of already occurred. But I think it's just looking forward and getting ahead of the game.
Yeah, because it's coming.
It is.
It's you know, our business is directly reflected on how other states make dumb decisions currently. You know, Washington, California, Oregon, they're doing a lot of dumb shit, and that drives people out of there, and they come here.
It's a similar answer with AI. AI is coming, and it's and what we see as AI today is nothing like what we'll be seeing in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Is going to be it's going to be massively changing our lives with humanoid robots. So I want to be a state that's ahead of the game. That's, you know, figuring out how are we going to deal with this and plan for this when it comes to jobs, and, you know, are we going to limit things, or are we going to be, you know, ahead of the game? There's a lot to be considered there, and we need specialists, people who are really into that world, to be able to put a plan for Idaho, the state, on how we're going to handle that.
Right. One more question. What's your opinion on tax benefits for retirees like other states have? I don't know specifically.
So I think might be talking like for people who are retired, we would have no property taxes for them first if they're over a certain age, maybe something like that. But there's other taxes too.
Do we tax pensions currently? Do you know?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Probably.
I would assume we do, right? Income tax.
Yeah.
That could be one.
I'll find out. I just started mine.
Oh yeah.
So
You
it's
probably
an
do.
out-of-state one, so I don't know.
Yeah, California's going to get a piece of that somehow,
I don't know. They suck.
guaranteed.
Yeah, so I'm okay with that in the meantime. But again, where I hope we're going, we won't be even talking about that because there won't be those taxes for anybody. On the pension thing, I actually have I would prefer that the city or state or counties are putting into a private account for the person working, and police officer or sheriff or deputy, whatever, at the end of their career, they have, $3 million that's accumulated over 30 years, and not a pension per se that's being paid out continuously. That's giving control to the people. That idea is much more, you're in charge of your own account. There's advisors available for you your whole career to help you decide what you want to do, but that's your money in your account. It's not in this big system where we're now giving the people who are controlling that system power on where they want to shift this money around to in effect. They're going to really affect businesses, things, ideologies, where they're going to end up investing that money.
Right.
Like you look at CalPERS, there's
boy.
so much money in there. Where are they moving this money around?
It's just disappearing too.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
even have.
Right. And so it's scary. And is it, in theory, could the whole thing just collapse someday? Yes, it could. But when you put money into someone's individual account, it's theirs, and there's no taking that, or there's no limiting it. And then, they retire and have an unfortunate incident and die a week later. There's still $3 million there going to their children and everything. So
Yeah, good stuff. Well, we're pushing over an hour. I know you have to get to the bunker bar here soon. Any other final thoughts before we jump off?
I'm excited. This is winnable. It's very winnable, and that part's exciting. I'm fully expecting Brad Little to issue a public apology any minute now. I know he's going to do that for calling my supporters racist. So I'm excited about hearing about that too. And I just want to say thank you to everybody in Idaho who's been so supportive through prayer, financial support. Showing up at events, meeting people. It's been great. A lot, learning. And here's the thing is, like, we just need to decide right now. You're going to wake up and fight every single day for truth and for what's right. If we all just do that every day, wake up and fight, we can eliminate all this corruption pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well, if you were watching us, or if you're tuning in, or if you're looking back at this, please make sure you guys vote. The primaries are so important here in Idaho, and really this is your election right now. It's not in November, it's right now. So however you vote, we just encourage people to get out there, take the information that's being given to you, and use that to your best advantage.
Yep. Bunker Bar, 11 o'clock today, Saturday, the 9th of May. Come on down. You can shake Mark's hand and ask him questions face to face. Dave and I will be there at some point, and have a beer with your future governor.